you know what I'm saying, video. I ain't did on the story video in a couple weeks, so you know what I'm saying. I'm all right to do one. And he be dropping him and Mr. Nightmare. They been dropping like a month. And Chillin' Scares, bro. They all been dropping like a motherfucker, bro. Let's go ahead and get into the video. Make sure y'all give me a thumbs up, like, share, and subscribe. You know what I'm saying? Make sure y'all comment and like this video if you like it. Don't be one of them weird motherfuckers. Just come up here and watch the video. Never leave a like or comment or nothing. Y'all niggas is lazy, cuz. What your fuck?
In Alaska, just near
Nah,
the
dead ass
Eklutna
serious.
Lake, a crew of electricians were walking along a remote power line trail. Their job was routine, but
Dead ass.
what they found buried beneath a thin layer of dirt
Better
was
luck.
anything but. A woman, no ID, no name, just red boots, handmade jewelry, and the marks of a violent end. This is the case of Eklutna Annie. In the late 1970s, Anchorage, Alaska was a boomtown with a dark underside. The Trans-Alaska Pipeline had recently been built, bringing an influx of workers and money into the city, which then created a rowdy nightlife. This drew the attention of some young women who were seeking jobs as topless dancers or street workers. And tragically, this attracted the attention of an absolute monster. Between 1979 and 1983, dozens of vulnerable women in Anchorage vanished or were found murdered in the wilderness. And it would be on the 17th of July 1980 that a crew of electricians working on a power line made a gruesome discovery. In a heavily wooded area about a mile south of the road, they found a shallow grave containing human remains of a young woman partially buried in the dirt. The scene was eerie and isolated. Only the hum of a
Man,
nearby power
that's fucked
line
up.
could be heard. The workers were of course shaken, but they wasted no time and they immediately called law enforcement. Alaskan state troopers arrived to secure the scene and recovered the remains. The body was so decomposed that only the bones and a small amount of mummified tissue remained. It was clear that the victim had been dead for quite some time. Investigators noted that the grave was shallow and hastily dug, suggesting that someone had tried to hide the body in a rush. However, there was no form of identification. No purse and no ID cards were found with her. The discovery understandably shocked local communities. Finding a murdered young woman in Anchorage's outskirts sparked fear and rumors. News outlets reported the basic facts: an unidentified female found near Eklutna. Without a name, the press could only describe her as Jane Doe, but she would soon be given the moniker Eklutna Annie. At the time of the discovery, the police had a homicide on their hands with no identity for the victim and no immediate leads on the killer. The case, tragically, was cold from day one. Annie's remains were transported to the medical examiner's office in Anchorage for an autopsy and analysis. Forensic examination yielded critical details about her appearance, the time of her death, and how she was killed, though it stopped short of revealing her name. Experts concluded that Annie had been dead for approximately 1 year by the time she was found.
Damn.
This placed her death in late 1979, likely in the fall of 1979, given the warm clothing she was found wearing. The Alaskan wilderness with its
And
cold
I know they ain't have that means like the shit that we got now. They ain't have all that shit back then. So I know it was really pretty hard, you know what I'm saying, to try to solve a case when you ain't got that much, you know what I'm saying, to go off of, but witnesses and that shit crazy.
winters may have slowed down the decomposition, but enough time had passed that only skeletal remains were found. This made identifying her much harder for the investigators. The autopsy determined that she had died from a single stab wound to the back, which penetrated her lungs and killed.
I would never buy candles online. I have my son buy it for me. When are you getting it?
Her. The forensic evidence indicated that she likely had been stabbed once between her shoulder blades, causing her lungs to collapse. Despite the advanced decomposition, experts could profile Annie's basic traits from her bones and her remaining hair. She was rather small, estimated at around 4'11" to 5'3", and she had a small build. And this is where it gets even more disturbing. It seems that she was likely in her late teens to early 20s. Some experts believe she was 16 and others 25. Her skull suggested that she was Caucasian with possible Native American ancestry, and she had strawberry blonde to light brown hair. She was found wearing some striking red boots, and she was wearing some distinctive jewelry. A handmade metal bracelet with 3 turquoise stones, a necklace made of shell beads, a ring carved from white shell, and gold twisted hoop earrings. These accessories were distinctive enough that police publicized photographs of them. They were sure that someone somewhere would recognize them, or recall a missing friend who would wear such items. But tragically, no one came forward. In her jacket pocket, investigators found a small box of matches, which indicated that she might have also been a smoker. With the body examined and the evidence catalogued, the police checked the missing person register for anyone who fit Annie's description, but it came up empty. No one matching this description had been reported missing in the time frame that she was killed. This only deepened the mystery of Eklutna Annie. It of course meant that her disappearance went unreported. A working theory for investigators was that she might have been a new arrival to Anchorage with few local ties, possibly fleeing an abusive home life or an abusive partner. For several years after 1980,
That could be it too.
Eklutna Annie's case languished without resolution. Her bones were buried in Anchorage's Memorial Park Cemetery under the placeholder marker Jane Doe, died 1980. The police had no name, no suspect. They were baffled as to how someone so young could have no one in their life who would have reported them missing to the police. Surely she should have some family or friends who knew she was missing,
Yeah, that's crazy.
but tragically, clearly she didn't. But in 1983, a dramatic turn of events brought her case back into focus. That year, the serial killer behind the despicable string of deaths was caught, and he would eventually admit to killing the girl found near Eklutna Lake.
Oh shit.
In 1983, a killer was caught, Robert Hansen. In June of that year, a 17-year-old girl named Cindy Paulson escaped from Robert in Anchorage, and how she escaped was nothing short of incredible. Cindy Paulson was working the streets near downtown. She was the kind of girl who Robert Hansen hunted. But Cindy was different, and she would be the one to survive him, and she would end his reign of terror. She was young, tough, and street smart, but nothing could prepare her for the man who pulled up beside her that night. A quiet man with glasses who said his name was Bob offered her $200 for a quick job. This was more than usual. She hesitated, but then got into the car. What she didn't know was that Robert Hansen had already picked out her burial site.
It remind me of what's it? Them. Y'all remember Them season 2? Not the first season, but the second season. Yeah, I ain't never heard of bro before though.
The moment the car doors locked, the tone changed. He pulled out a
I
gun
already be the
and
hand.
drove her to a small, ordinary-looking house. His house. Once inside, he took her to the basement. That's where he chained her by the neck to a post in the center of the room. Hansen then tortured her and forced himself upon her. After doing this, he began to pack. He packed rope, a hunting knife, and a rifle.
What need all that for?
She asked him what he was doing, and he told her, "We're going flying. I've got a place I want to show you." By morning, he loaded her into his car. She was still handcuffed, still terrified. He drove her to a small airfield in the middle of Anchorage. Cindy watched as he began loading a small bush plane. She didn't know exactly where they were going, but she was sure of one thing. If she got on that plane, she would never come back.
At
As
all.
Hansen bent over the
At
cockpit,
all, bro.
checking the gear and preparing for takeoff, Cindy bravely made her move. She ran. Barefoot and handcuffed, she ran across the tarmac and the gravel. She was able to get away. And as luck would have it, a man driving a pickup truck spotted her, screaming and waving. The man stopped, and he let her in. She begged this man not to take her to the police. She was scared that she would get into trouble for her lifestyle. So instead, he dropped her off at a nearby motel, the Mush Inn, where she called for her boyfriend. But the driver, he called the police. An officer then made his way to the motel. He found Cindy hiding under a blanket in one of the rooms. She was still in handcuffs and still shaking. She then told him everything: the chains in the basement, the knife, the airport, the plane. She even described Hansen's house, his car, even the interior. And it all checked out. Robert Hansen was then arrested. When the police brought him in for questioning, he denied everything. He said that Cindy was lying and that she was trying to extort him because he refused to pay her. He appeared to be calm and he appeared to be collected, and so he was free to
go.
That you did what you did. I can't rap about it, don't
go. However, eventually, her testimony, along with other evidence, finally cracked open the secret of who had been hunting women around Anchorage. On the 27th of October 1983, police arrested Robert Hansen on multiple charges.
This guy.
So, who was Robert? Robert was an experienced hunter who lived a double life. By day, he ran his bakery business, and by night, he became a predator. By all accounts, he wasn't the kind of man you'd cross the road to avoid. He wasn't loud, and he wasn't menacing. He ran a bakery, he was a father, and he was a quiet man who stuttered when he spoke. He had 2 children with
Fucking Dexter, ain't he?
his second wife, Darla Hansen. The family lived together in Anchorage.
Hey, them be the worst serial killers, bro.
These crimes.
No cap.
Darla was reportedly unaware of his double life. His wife and children were often away visiting relatives or out of state, which gave him the perfect opportunity to abduct and kill without them knowing.
Them be the
For
worst
over a
kind.
decade, he hunted women through the Alaskan wilderness. His victims were dancers, workers, and runaways. Women who were vulnerable, women no one looked for if they went missing. He'd drive through Anchorage's red light district, looking for his next target. Sometimes he posed as a customer, sometimes a photographer. He promised them safety, money, even modeling gigs. If a victim said yes, if she got into his car, her fate was already sealed. He'd take the victims back to his house, a plain, quiet home in a neighborhood called Muldoon, always, of course, when his family were away. Down in the basement, behind the walls of a normal suburban life, was his real world. There he kept his tools, a chain bolted to a wooden support beam, a hunting knife, a rifle, and trophies. He kept earrings, driver's licenses, necklaces, tiny pieces of the women
Trophies.
that he destroyed.
Trophies.
If the victim didn't fight, she lived a little longer. Hansen would wait until morning. Then he'd drive his victims to a small airstrip in the middle of town. This is where he kept his pride and joy, a 2-seater Super Club bush plane. He would then fly himself and the victim into the wilderness. Vast stretches of untouched forest, no roads, no help, no mercy. No one would hear them scream. Once they landed, he would let the victim out. Sometimes he'd give them a head start, sometimes he would taunt them. He would then stalk them through the trees and marsh, waiting for a moment they stumbled, cried, or begged. After killing them, he would then return to Anchorage, bake bread and cakes, and
That's
spend
crazy.
time with his family. No one suspected a thing. Hansen's crimes earned him the moniker the Butcher Baker, and he would eventually confess to killing these women. It's believed that he murdered around 17 to 21 women in this way. He eventually showed the authorities where many of his victims were buried.
God damn.
During an absolute marathon investigation in 1984, Hansen provided the chilling details of his crimes. But then he was asked about the mystery of Eklutna Annie, and he admitted responsibility. He told the police that he had killed her. Hansen confirmed that Annie was his victim, the very first one he ever killed. Hansen recounted the murder with disturbing clarity, and his story matched the evidence from Annie's remains, lending credibility to his account. According to Robert, sometime in late 1979, he encountered Annie. Tragically, he could not recall her real name, which shows how little he thought of his victims. Hansen used his standard method. He offered her money and got her into his car, but as Hansen drove, Annie grew worried. Instead of heading towards his house in Muldoon, he turned onto an old road leading north into a dark, sparsely populated area. Annie realized that something was horribly wrong. She begged him to turn around and take her back to the city. At first, she did this calmly, but then she began to panic. Hansen lied to her, saying that he was only going a little bit further to a safe spot where no one would find them. But she didn't believe him. She demanded that he stop the car at once and let her out. But Hansen then pulled out a gun and told her to cooperate if she wanted to live.
Oh
As
shit.
the two were driving down a lonely
This
track
guy.
near Eklutna, Hansen's vehicle got stuck in the mud off a road. Seizing the opportunity, Annie bolted from the truck and ran into the darkness.
I'm tell you right now, all serial killers back in the day used to have glasses. B2K. This nigga. Um, 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 um. Damn, it's a third one. I was thinking about it, but I'll let y'all know.
Desperate to escape,
Oh, Jeffrey
but
Dahmer.
Hansen was an experienced
Jeffrey
tracker
Dahmer.
and hunter. Like in some cliche horror movie, he grabbed a knife and a flashlight, and he began to pursue her. In his confession, Hansen chillingly described how he chased her down in the forest, eventually catching up to her as she stumbled. He yanked her to the ground by her long hair, and a violent struggle ensued.
This guy.
At one point, she managed to pull out a knife from her purse to defend herself, but Hansen was able to overpower her.
Of course.
He then stabbed her one single time in the back as she lay face down, exactly as the autopsy had indicated. Hansen recalled that as he plunged the blade into her back, Annie screamed, "Please don't kill me." He said that these were her final words before she was killed. The attack punctured her lung and she quickly succumbed to her injury. Robert Hansen had committed his first known murder. He dragged her body back to an area near the power line and hastily dug a shallow grave to hide her. He was satisfied that the remote location would keep her concealed, and so he left the scene. Annie's remains lay in the grave through the winter snows and the spring of 1980 until the work crew uncovered her by chance. With Hansen's admission in 1984, authorities finally knew how Annie had died and who killed her.
R.I.P.
But still, they had absolutely no idea who she was. Hansen was convicted of multiple murders. He was given a life sentence, plus 461 years in prison. He died behind bars in 2014, never having provided any further insight into Annie's identity. For law enforcement, a frustrating reality remained. Closing the case on the murder did not close the case on the victim's identity. The file on Annie stayed open as Jane Doe Investigation, the oldest such case in Alaska. As one cold case investigator later said, solving who she is became a matter of justice and equality. They said that no matter how she lived, she deserves just as much of a search for her people as any other victim.
Yeah.
In Alaska, the tale of Annie has become one of the state's most infamous true crime mysteries, and the public's response has been one of enduring empathy. Strangers still bring flowers to her simple grave that just reads, "Jane Doe, died 1980," and locals still occasionally pause by the bronze plaque. In the last few years, there have been some efforts to finally put a name,
Travel can be amazing.
a real name to Annie. A 2020 forensic facial reconstruction of Annie was created based on Annie's skull. This updated composite image was released to the public 41 years after her death, with the hope that someone might recognize her face. The portrait shows a young woman with light brown hair tied back, with a subtle, haunting gaze. This 2020 image was widely circulated on social media. It was shared hundreds of times online in just a matter of days, and local news ran segments on Annie's cold case with the new look. But tragically, no identification came.
Yeah.
Over the years, a few tips have trickled in, but so far none of them have panned out. Amateur investigators share their research, Investigators hope that someone somewhere who knew a girl who went to Alaska and never returned might make the connection upon seeing the composite, but as more time passes, that possibility dwindles. Investigators believe that Annie may have been one of the many young women who drifted into Anchorage's nightlife, far from family and unlikely to be immediately reported missing.
R.I.P. Jane though,
She
man. That
might
shit
have left behind a family who never knew of what became of her, possibly assuming that she chose to live a new life in Alaska and run away. It's tragic to think that there are people out there who could go missing and no one cares to check on them. As of 2025, Eklutna Annie remains unidentified but not forgotten, and this is a story that won't truly end until we can speak her real name and tell her full story.
And R.I.P. man. It is crazy though that nobody came forward. You feel me? Saying my family member, you know what I'm saying? My daughter missing, my sister missing, anything. My cousin missing. Haven't seen my cousin since we was young. Look, it's kind of crazy. I'm not gonna lie to you, because if your family care, bro, or she even had family that cared about her, bro, they would have been on police ass. You know what I'm saying? Would have been searching everywhere. Would have been on ass. You know what I'm saying? That being said, see y'all when I see y'all. Love y'all. Or y'all be safe. Stay dangerous. You know what I'm saying? Stay humble. You know what I'm saying? Stay out the way. That being said, see y'all when I see y'all. This video was kind of crazy. I didn't expect the serial killer part. They ain't come about. I ain't gonna lie. Hey, most serial killers blend in, bro. They blend in. Sorry to say, y'all gotta watch out who y'all hang with too. Everybody be serial killer these days. That being said, see y'all when I see y'all. Love y'all. Y'all stay safe, stay dangerous, stay out the way. This video coming on Wednesday or Thursday. It's Sunday now. Yeah, I be having videos in the vault, bro. I ain't gonna lie. I ain't gonna lie to y'all. I be having videos in the vault, bro. See y'all when I see y'all. Love y'all. Let's ride.